Hello, BookTube. Aaron Facer didn't make me do it. The Brothers Gwynn did not push me. Joseph Reed's books did not egg me on. I was not urged or encouraged by my close personal friend Jack Edwards. Randy Ray, the literate Texan, did not give me a persuasive drawl. I went to the Brattle bookshop today because I wanted to, regardless of outside peer pressure. I have been going to the Brattle bookshop, a used bookstore in downtown Boston, forever. And I went today, even though it was predicted to be murderously hot and humid right out of the hymn book. I barely even need to say it anymore. According to every piece of data, according to every meteorologist, according to every weather system, this incredible heat and humidity, which has choked and crushed Boston for a solid month since the 3rd of July, is going to be changing tomorrow. I don't believe it. I don't believe it at all. I think that from now on, my life is going to be lived in a succession of very small force field bubbles created by air conditioning. But whether it ends or not, it wasn't ending today. Today it was the usual 85 degrees Fahrenheit at 8 o'clock in the morning with no possibility of any relief, just 85, 90, 95 with 100% humidity, so that if you spit into the air, the water droplets simply hang there. They don't have anywhere to go, the air is too thick for them to fall, and certainly they cannot evaporate because the air is at saturation point, so that you feel not like you are in a sauna. You don't feel when you're walking around outside like you're in a sauna. You feel like you're in a sauna with a really wet, old gym sock stuffed down your throat, and you're trying to breathe past that gym sock. That's what it feels like. That's what it's felt like for a solid month now. And despite that fact, I don't think we're at an explicit heat advisory in Boston, but still bad, pretty bad. I decided to go back to Brattle on my own, because I am not just a feckless creature of peer pressure. I sometimes go to the Brattle for my own reasons. I went. I shopped. I had a great time. Not just the books. I had a great time. And then I lugged everything back in 100-degree heat. And it was a huge amount. I got a huge amount of books. And they were very heavy. And I had no one to help me. And I'm a poor, frail little shut-in. Actually, the only little public service announcement that I'll make for this video, it reflects the fact that I am not yet a poor, frail shut-in. Someday I will be. Just a little public service announcement for any of you who live in big metro area cities. And according to U.S. Census information, according to World Census information, that's better than 80% of the population of the world lives in some sort of urban center. Maybe not an intense urban center. In other words, maybe not something with a subway. But still, little point of etiquette. We'll issue 2 points of etiquette before we go on to the books. Point of etiquette number 1 is specific, and point of etiquette number 2 is general. Point of etiquette number 1 that is specific is when a subway car pulls up to a station and comes to a stop, you, waiting on the platform, let the passengers off before you get on. There is no dual stream. There's not one side's getting off and one side's getting on, and there's no justification at all for you trying to barge your way onto a full car when people are trying to get off. You let the passengers get off before you get on. So that's rule of etiquette number 1, and it's very specific. And it broadens out to rule of etiquette number 2, which is that if you don't do that, if you decide, I've known this since I was 5 years old, but to hell with it, I'm going to do whatever I want because of social media, and you decide to just barge into a crowded subway car or, I don't know, bomb your bike or your motorized scooter down the middle of a sidewalk or whatever the thing is. But in this case, it's barging onto a crowded subway car. If you decide to do that anyway, despite rule of etiquette number 1, then you are doing that because you are deciding to reduce your daily routine to the law of the effing jungle. You are doing that because you are saying, make me stop. I'm doing whatever I want, and the only way you will stop me is by physically stopping me. You will need to make me stop. Otherwise, put up with it. Tough. Because it's the law of the jungle. Because there aren't any rules. We aren't living by any rules here. Even though there are 2 million of us side by side, we're still not living by any rules. Or rather, we are, the rest of you are, but not me. I'm not living by any rules. I'm living by the law of the jungle. Okay. The broader rule of etiquette here is, if you decide to reduce your daily routine to the law of the frickin' jungle, you cannot complain if other people obey the law of the jungle. There are no cops in the jungle. There are no transit authority officials in the jungle. If you decide to make our civilized society, with written and unwritten rules that we are all living by, to make it bearable, if you decide you're just going to say, to hell with that, I'm going to do whatever I want, okay, then you've reduced your ordinary daily routine to the law of the jungle, which means that if you come across a larger warthog, you're out of luck. You're just plain out of luck. You don't have anything to resort to. You don't have anything to call to. You're just stuck. So that if, for instance, in a wild hypothetical, you were to be on a platform when a subway train pulls in and the door open and you decide, I'm just going to barge my way into this crowded car. I'm not going to let anyone off until I'm on and seated and sucking down with my soda pop. And the very first person that you run into when the door opens is a bigger warthog. Let's say 265 pounds. Let's say no functioning sense of touch. Let's say full of rage against you specifically already. Let's say with an extremely inventive and aggressive personal injury lawyer on retainer and on speed dial. Well, if all those factors rule against you, and of course, what are the chances? If all those factors rule against you, well, and you decide to just do this, to just be a warthog on the African veldt instead of a civilized person in the city, well, you have no one to blame but yourself. Not at all. You have no one to blame but yourself. You are on two different platform security cameras acting aggressively. You are on two different platform security cameras denying the rules of etiquette that we all know and live by. And if that insane hypothetical were to take place, the most that larger warthog would be compelled to do would be to say that he or she or it hopes that your left foot, both your kneecaps, your pelvis, your rib cage, your clavicle especially, and your chin and forehead eventually heal someday. That's all that larger warthog has to do. They don't even have to do that. You're the one who made it the law of the jungle. Anyway, you absolutely, the point I'm trying to say is you absolutely are not, in that instance, owed an excuse me. You are doing something you know is wrong, assaultively wrong. You absolutely are not owed an excuse me or a warning. So, anyway, a little courtesy tips for us, little points of etiquette before we move on to the books. Oh my God, a pile of books, and I'm not showing you all of them. There are a couple of items that I got for other people that I'm not going to show in this video, and still a lot. And I'm looking at this pile that was so much of an epic endeavor to get back here. It was such an epic endeavor to lug this back here. I'm looking at this pile, and I see one paperback. Just one. It's a really good find. It's the thing I wanted. The Edith Wharton, my beloved Edith Wharton, wrote a weird, enigmatic, elusive, downright strange fragment of an autobiography, attempt at an autobiography. It was called A Backward Glance. It's a fascinating book. Probably the most fascinating book she ever wrote. I have never got to the bottom of it. I absolutely love it. I don't know that Penguin Classic makes a version of it. And forever and ever, I had a version of it that I didn't like. And there was a version of it out there that I knew I did like. I'd seen it at a used bookstore 30 years ago. And every time I saw another version of A Backward Glance at the Brattle or some other used bookstore, I passed it up because I wanted this particular edition. I found it today. This thing. Which has no folderol. It just has one whole cover. The only problem with this cover, it was festooned with stickers. They were everywhere. This one is the only one that is going to tear off the cover if I pull it off. The others behave themselves. This thing will not. It's already bonded to the paper, to the cardboard of the cover. So it's not going anywhere. And I don't want it there. I don't want a price tag on my book. So I will use one of my own stickers there. I will put a Velociraptor there, or perhaps a Parademon. But now I have the paperback version of this thing that I want. I shouldn't say paperback. I don't want any other version of this. Unless Penguin makes a classic of it, I don't want any other version of this. So that was my paperback. I got a paperback. One measly paperback. All the rest of them are hardcovers. But some really neat stuff here. Some rebuys, some finds, some experiments. All the wonderful stuff that I get at my shop. Just all the wonderful stuff. Like, for instance, this thing is old. This hardcover. Okay, it's inscribed for Christmas 1903. Is that how old the book is? I have to know how old the book is. I should know how old the book is, since I'm pretty much the only person in the world who could write this guy's biography. Okay, yeah. This is later. This is the fourth edition from 1899. So somebody got this at a used bookstore or whatever and bought it for a friend for Christmas years later. And the first one was in 1893. And this is John Addington Symonds, who I've praised many, many times before on this channel. I've read everything by him. And I have lots and lots of stuff by him, lots and lots of secondary material. I could write a biography of this guy. I just don't... I can't write biographies of all these people, now can I? It's just... But I found his study of Dante. How incredible. This is a prologue, really. An introduction to the study of Dante. This is a prologue, really, of all of Dante's life and times. What you need to know about his biography, about his world, about the politics that defined his life, the factional politics that defined his life, and also the learning that goes into the Commedia. So I absolutely love this book. I've read it a few times, but I never thought I would own a copy. I never thought I'd find a copy, except maybe up on the third floor of the Brattle, where the old and collectible stuff is. But the key here, as everywhere, is collectible to who? Valuable to who? Nobody would value this but me. so I grabbed it. It would never be up on the third floor. I'm sure that even a first edition of this thing would be no more than $20. Nobody would care. Nobody thinks that John Addington Symonds is collectible. But he's beautiful to read. For all I know, this is on Project Gutenberg. I have never gone. I should make a mental note. I've never gone on Project Gutenberg to see how much of his stuff is there. Probably a lot of it is. If some Project Gutenberg, of course, for those of you who maybe aren't up on the lingo, is it's a marvel. It's an Aladdin's Cave of Wonders. It's a website, Project Gutenberg, as in Gutenberg, the Gutenberg Bible, the Gutenberg printing press. It's full of books, tens of thousands of common domain books that are no longer under copyright. All of them carefully, cleanly formatted and available for download on a million different devices in a million different ways. And oh my God, they have so much more than just the classics. The stuff we consider to be the classics. I should look and see how much John Addington Symonds is there. But this is just a wonderful old thing. Someone had to cut the pages. And you've got, I think, the Death Mask of Dante. Right there at the beginning. So very happy to have this, of course. It works as a biography. I have other Dante biographies, but this is a book that will go in Little Book Room. None of the other Dante books do. Then I found an anthology, nice fat anthology. I didn't know this at all, but I took one glance at it. Took two glances at it, actually. One, to make sure that it had a lot of people in it. That anthologies can sometimes be very weirdly provincial. And two, to make sure that it wasn't highlighted, because it looks like something that could have been used in a school once upon a time. And it's clean. It's edited by Elizabeth Nugent. And it's called The Thought and Culture of the English Renaissance, an anthology of Tudor prose 1482 to 1555. I want to point out that an anthology of Tudor prose is a description of the book, and The Thought and Culture of the English Renaissance is a subtitle. This thing just doesn't have a title. No one bothered to title it. Or maybe they think this boring-ass thing is a title. I don't know. But this is a nice, big, thick anthology full of... Who have we got here? Oh, there's a bookmark from Powell's. And oh my God, the bookmark was on Erasmus. I promise this was not my book. I've never had this before. Someone was at Erasmus. So, and then of course next to Erasmus is Thomas More. But you've got Stephen Gardner and who else have we got here? Oh wow, translation or rather reprints of Tudor grammar manuals. How interesting. Simon Fish, John Rastall. I wonder if Ashton is in here. Christopher St. Germain, the famous vampire. That's all. Tyndall's in here. Sir Thomas More again. Oh, there's so much in here. Fantastic. All right. Well, I love anthologies anyway. I love them anyway. And this was, like I mentioned, one of the many things that I mentioned about the Brattle is that it facilitates this kind of a leap into the dark. You're not out any money. You're out barely any money at all. I was out some money today because I do not have any store credit from you. But I wasn't out much. It's the Brattle, so it's not expensive. Okay, this next one I get whenever I see it because I get rid of it every time I see it. Every time I get a copy of this, somebody comes out of the woodwork to say that they want it. Now, I've never had a copy quite as nice as this, so I'm going to hold on to this one. But I do strongly recommend it, even though it's connected with George Plimpton, who I do not ordinarily recommend. This is the writer's chapbook. I found this rock solid hardcover with a covering on it already, and the deckled edges and everything. I don't remember having an issue, a version of this that looked quite so good. And this is a collection of reflections by various writers on various aspects of the literary experience. And those reflections can be a paragraph long, a sentence long, sometimes a whole page long. And I don't know who Plimpton got to do the selecting here and the annotating, but whoever they did was a really good job. It certainly wasn't George Plimpton, and unfortunately, because George Plimpton's name is on the cover, it almost certainly wasn't a woman. But despite that fact, and when it comes to assembling a 20th century literary anthology of any kind, the fact that your editor is not a woman is a severe handicap because they had to work twice as hard. They had to read twice as much as the men, so their anthologies tended to be better. But if it's George Plimpton, it couldn't have been. Despite all of those handicaps, the selections in here are fantastic. And they're on everything. They're on getting your first book published. They're on reading. There are many, many, many things that recurs to reading in here. Writer's block, of course. Building characters. Fighting with other authors. The writing life. Revision. All that sort of. It's all in here, and I love it. Absolutely love it. It's one of my favorite writing books. So I was glad to have it, and I'm not giving it up. I'm not giving it up. If you want a copy, I'll find one for you, but it won't be mine. It won't be my copy. Okay, then I found another duplicate. I've had this thing before. To tell you the truth, well, of course I'm going to tell you the truth because I don't tell you anything else on this channel. I'm not a streamer. This morning when I saw this thing, I thought, my mind just went bing, 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 and I thought, do you have a copy of that or don't you? I don't remember. So I thought, well, okay, if you have a copy, you've removed this from the sale carts, and someone who might have really, really wanted it does not have it, but they will. Because if it's a double, it will eventually end up on a Brattle sale pile, and we'll go back to the shop. It'll just be a little time, and they have to wait. That's all. I don't know. I've looked just a bit cursorily, and I don't think I have a copy of this. This is by Tony Soper. And this is his book on owls, which I believe I have hauled on this channel. I've had copies of this before. Owl fans tend to want a copy of this thing, and if you live virtually anywhere, I was going to say a used book desert, but if you live virtually anywhere and you don't want to buy books online, when are you going to see this? And if you do, it's going to be $20. It's not going to be $2 or $3. This is everything. This is historical approach to humans and owls. It's natural history. It's their behavior. It's everything. They're all about their ornithology. It's a delightful book to have, really an essential owl book. I just don't know off the top of my head if I have it already. I'll have to look a little bit harder, although there's a part of me that says that if you have to look that hard, you probably don't have it. Because despite all of these Brattle book hauls, I am trying to cut down on my physical book library. The key is that I want to winnow for the stuff that I absolutely love, stuff that I either out here in the rooms or in the little book rooms, stuff that I'm going to know that I have that I'm going to go back to over and over again, and I am getting there. It's a slow process, but I am getting there. Every Brattle haul, there will be stuff that is obviously not going to be here a year from now. Obviously, that will be true. But I would like to think that I'm nudging the percentages up of the stuff that will be here a year from now. This next one, again, I saw it in the sale lot, and I thought, well, Mr. Memory, do you have this or don't you? And I could not remember for the life of me. And the thing about the Brattle, the sale lot, is that I don't know how it is for other people at other used bookstores, but if I'm in the sale lot and I see something and I think, oh, I don't know if I have this or not, I better err on the side of caution and not take it. I inevitably won't have it, and it won't be there the next time I go back. So I didn't gamble. This is the great 20th century literary critic Dennis Donahue, and this is his book We Irish. And it turns out that I do have a copy of this. It's not quite as new as this, but it also doesn't have this rip on the cover. So I do have a second copy of this. This is Dennis Donahue writing about great Irish writers, and maybe not great Irish writers. I believe that he has a segment in here on Thomas Flanagan. I apparently am incapable of thinking he is a great Irish author, despite how beloved his books are. The books are just boring. To me, they're just boring. But who am I to tell? So I do have this, which means technically now I have a double, which means I can send it out. I have a particular recipient in mind. We'll see. We'll see which one I want to keep. Then this next one, very glad to find it in a hardcover, much less with a plastic covering on it. When it comes to the subject of Sherlock Holmes, there are things that you want to have, right? You don't necessarily want a whole bookcase of Sherlock Holmes. That would probably mean that you're a little bit of a weirdo. But the stereotypical, the proverbial shelf that I always talk about, if you have a shelf of Shakespeare books, you have a shelf of Jane Austen books. Well, if you have a shelf of Sherlock Holmes books, let's say it's a generous shelf, you know what the things you're going to want on there. You're going to want a beater copy, a paperback preferably, of the stories. Probably the old Bantam 2 volume one. Just a beater paperback for the stories. You're going to want a nice 1-volume collected stories. You're going to want probably the Penguin Classic Deluxe edition of the 4 novels. You're probably going to want, if you're really into Holmes, you're probably going to want an annotated version, either Baring Gould's 2-volume annotated version or the new one that you see in the background of Michael K. Vaughan's videos. An annotated version that you can pull out and sort of read up on what does this mean, what is this reference to, would this really have been what a subway car cost at this point? All the tiny little details that are chased down. I myself believe that Baring Gould is perfectly good enough. I don't think you need 3 volumes of the annotated Holmes, especially since it has been my experience that 99% of the people who have annotated Sherlock Holmes volumes, when they have a yen to read The Problem of Thor Bridge or The Man with the Twisted Lip, they go to the beater paperback. They don't touch their annotated volumes, which maybe they would say is justifiable. I say you don't have books that you don't touch. But anyway, on that shelf, in addition to a beater copy and a 1-volume and with Sidney Paget illustrations, of course, the 1-volume has to have Sidney Paget illustrations, and also a multi-volume annotated edition, you also want a few other things. You also want a few studies in Holmesiana, maybe a couple of Holmes pastiche novels, depending on your taste. You will fill out the rest of that shelf with other things. And for me, this thing would be on that shelf. This is naked is the best disguise. And this is basically all of the topical annotations in an annotated Sherlock Holmes without the stories. This is the author going through Sherlock Holmes and finding out, well, what did Doyle have in mind? Why did he pick the Reichenbach Falls? And who did he pattern Moriarty after? It's also very specific. And this was not a guy who had a great deal of creativity. Why? So where are these individual idiosyncratic things coming from? What about The Adventure of the Red-Headed League, for instance, my favorite Sherlock Holmes story? The villain in that story is clearly patterned after someone Doyle had read about. You don't have to know that to enjoy the story, but you can obviously tell it once you read Doyle. Well, this author chased down everything about that, and it's wonderful. It's truly, truly wonderful. Definitely a Holmes book to have. And I've only ever had it in crappy paperback, so now I have a hardcover. Then we have biography. I have had this biography so many times. I have had the hardcover. I've had the trade paperback. I believe I have an ebook of it. I've annotated it many times. I have no idea why that is. Every once in a while you get a book like that. Boomerang books are what I call them, where you have it, You engage with it. You do not want to get rid of it at all. It's part of your permanent collection, but it ends up gone. And then you find it again, and you get it again, and you grapple with it again, and you're happy you have it again, and it once again disappears. And in this case, I'm not even saying that I sent copies of this thing out to other people. In my entire life, I've known very few people I could send this to who would want it. So I don't know what causes boomerang books, but I found this again. I will annotate it. I will mark it. I will inventory it. I will be loving towards it. I may even reread it this weekend. But I have no illusions. I am sure that this thing will be gone next year. This is Victoria Glendinning. She's a terrific biographer. She wrote a biography of Elizabeth Bowen. I really wish I could find that book. But her best-selling book was this one, her biography of Vita Sackville-West. It's terrific. It got tons and tons of critical praise, and it deserved every word of it. I love it. Think it's absolutely fantastic. Don't know why I keep getting rid of it, but now I have it again. So we'll see if I can hold on to it. Then this next one is a big anthology. There were a few anthologies today that I had a yen to get. I didn't get all of them, but I got the Tudor fiction one, and I guess the George Plimpton book could be called an anthology. I do like anthologies because you can get lost in them, and they can lead you to all sorts of recommendations that you would never have had otherwise, that you wouldn't have known about. But another kind of big collected volume that I like are those old one-volume best of or collected such and such that you've seen them on this channel a million times. I don't know that they're very much made anymore unless they're made in those faux leather-bound things that Barnes & Noble makes, but once upon a time they were a big deal. They were a fixture of remainder departments in bookstores where you would get 3 novels by Jane Austen or the collected Jack London or something like that. I have shelf and shelf and shelf of these things. I love them. No matter who makes them, I love them. And there was one in particular, the house that does a lot of these now is Fall River. If you get a Hamilton Books catalog in the mail, these things will be Fall River. But once upon a time, it was Gramercy or Avenel, which basically bought from... They're pretty much the same. And I have a ton of both Gramercy and Avenel volumes. And I love them. I think they're really great. There are a few that I'd really like to find that I haven't found. But there's one that I wanted. I've wanted it for a while now, and I found it out in the sale lot. This is their volume on Willa Cather. This lovely thing right here. Look at that. How lovely. Is that a Grant Wood painting on the cover here? Surely Avenel would not, or Gramercy would not pay for a Grant Wood painting. Yes, it is. Yeah. This is Stone City, Iowa. This is his painting, Stone City, Iowa. That's one detail. This has, her masterpiece and her most famous book, but also it has a book, Alexander's Bridge is a book of hers that I have not read in 50 years, more than that. Effectively haven't read it at all. I remember the plot. I remember there's one key takeaway scene, but I need to read it again in order to read it for the first time. So, and this is one of those collected volumes that I've wanted. So very happy to find it. Then this next one is also a collected volume. And I held it in my hand and I dismissed it. Thought, it's kind of dumb looking. You don't ever do that. I shouldn't ever do that. I don't know all. I don't see all at the Brattle sale lot. I went back to it and examined it. I made a full circuit of the sale lot and I came back to it and examined it again and realized, ooh, I do want that. I do want that. This is Castle books, but basically they are Avenel or Gramercy. They are a big remainder collection stuff. And this is the science fiction of H.G. Wells. And when I first I've never seen this volume before. There's nothing at all on it, just that. When I first held this thing in my hand, I glanced at it and thought, with original illustrations, I thought, okay, well, I've seen a million illustrations for First Man in the Moon or whatever. I'm sure your illustrations aren't going to be all that good. So no thanks. Because it took a whole nother circuit of the sale lot for me to realize that the is in there. And this isn't original illustrations. This is the original illustrations. By Warwick Goble. These are the original illustrations. These are the spot illustrations that were done in little magazines where this stuff was serialized originally. I have never seen an H.G. Wells volume with those illustrations in it before. And this has a lot else in addition to that. It has all the stuff that you would expect. But when it calls itself science fiction, there are things in here that I wouldn't expect. Wells, for instance, wrote a series of stories set in prehistory, 25, 30,000 years ago. I think I've only read one of those. I may have read them all, but I think I've only read one of those. And they're all in here. They're all in this book, even though they're not technically science fiction. Yeah, you wish. This is from the Graphic magazine in 1899. H.G. Wells never looked like that. Take my word for it. But what have we got here? The War of the Worlds, First Man in the Moon, When the Sleeper Wakes, then short stories, The Country of the Blind, Empire of the Ants, The Valley of Spiders, The Man Who Could Work Miracles, and many more. Okay, but the many more are going to be the just I can say. Yeah, stories from the Stone Age. Ugolomi and Uya, Ugolomi and the Cave Bear, The First Horseman, The Reign of Uya the Lion, The Fight in the Lion's Thicket. These are things I don't know. Maybe I've read them all. You H.G. Wells fans, you old vintage science fiction fans, Michael K. Vaughan, wasn't there a volume of H.G. Wells' Stone Age stories? Just those stories. Once upon a time. Don't I remember a cheesy paperback of those? I could swear that I do. But anyway, I have them now, and I have them in a form where I can actually read them. That's nice and durable. So that's fantastic. That's another collected volume. And then the last one here is probably the find of the day. I almost went right by it. It's in terrible shape, but that doesn't matter. Oh, that doesn't matter. This is the book. Look at this. This is in terrible shape. I will try to clean this up. But this is a privately printed edition. This was made in, there was 1,100 editions. I have edition number 34 of The Praise of Folly, with an introduction by Horace Bridges. All of the pictures of Holbein etched in the author's time, to which are added Mr. Angarola's conceptions of the period and drawings of way and contemporary comment by Jean Markey, Esquire. From 1925. It's got a long introduction about Erasmus. It's just broken completely. I don't know quite why that is. I don't know if this is a case where someone went through a copy of this book earlier and cut out a lot of the illustrations. But it looks like a lot are still here. There are, including full page ones like that, that are all throughout here. Look at this. Look at this guy in his dressing gown and slippers. That is clearly a contemporizing of Erasmus. The pages here are incredibly stiff. This was privately printed on really heavy paper, so they are cut. Whoever had this did read it, and there is the final picture. To put it mildly, I have never had this version of The Praise of Folly. I will clean it up as best I can. I don't know what I can do with it. I'll do the best I can with it, but I couldn't have left it behind. No way. For $3? No way could I have left this behind. I want to see if I can get a very light touch with an alcohol wipe or a warm cloth to pull up some of the details here without ruining them. See how much of this obscuring here is dirt as opposed to wearing away. I want to get as much of the dirt off this as I can, which an alcohol wipe will do. Probably, if I apply it gently, it will do that. And then I don't know, maybe put just a paper cover over this, just something to preserve it, or something so I'm not touching an icky cover when I pull it down off the shelf. One of those paper covers that we all used to make in grade school. One of those, once you've made 1 million of those, and the nuns made us make 1 million of those, you never lose the knack. I know how to do that. I could make my own cover, in which case, if I did that. I might do that, but I couldn't leave this behind. This is exactly the sort of thing you see at the Brattle. And it's Erasmus, who is in this video. He's in every video. He's looking over my shoulder. He's the other. He's the other figure looking over my shoulder. So there you go. That was a totally non-coerced Brattle book haul. I went on my own. I went because I wanted to. I didn't have any booktube boys threatening me or coercing me with peer pressure. I went on my own because I loved the shop. I found a lot that I'm going to use. And I strongly think, I know I always say this, but I strongly think that a lot of these books are going in the little book room. They will end up there. They will be keepers. I mean, look at all the things I've shown you so far. It's possible that Tudor fiction anthology would disappoint. I doubt it, but it's possible that it would, in which case it wouldn't go into the little book room. I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, I don't know why, I don't know how, but I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that I will not hold on to this Vita Sackville-West biography. I've owned this thing. I bought this thing and probably half a dozen times in my life since it came out. So I know that I won't own it, that I won't keep it, but I might put it in the little book room just to snub my nose at fate. But anyway, so I found a battered old copy, 100-year-old copy of The Praise of Folly by Erasmus. I found the collector's book of science fiction by H.G. Wells with the original illustrations from 100 years ago. I found 3 complete novels by Willa Cather. I found Victoria Glendin's biography of Vita Sackville-West. Let's see here. I found Naked is the Best Disguise in hardcover with somebody already putting a covering over it. Very good. I found what turns out to be a double of We Irish by Dennis Donahue, the other great Donahue literary critic. I found Owls by Tony Soper. I found George Plimpton's really a commonplace book of the writer's chapbook. I found The Thoughts and Culture of the English Renaissance, an anthology of Tudor prose, 1481 to 1555. Any one of these essays would have had a phrase that would make a better title, but I'm happy to have the book. I found John Addington Simon's book on Dante. How incredible. How absolutely incredible. And finally, the one and only lonely paperback, A Backward Glance by Edith Wharton. In this particular edition, this one with the little C on the top there, they make a number of books like this. A lot of them. They used to make a lot of books, a lot of paperbacks, including a lot of great reprints of travel classics. And finally, I have the version of it that I want. I just need to cover up the price tag on the cover, which I can do. Will it be The Legion of Superheroes? Will it be Krypton exploding? I don't know. I'll figure out something. But anyway, there you go. Another 75 pounds of books lugged back here by a frail senior citizen. But we are scheduled to get a lot of rain. I don't know if that's going to happen, but that might cut down on my Brattle trips until it's all well and truly over. So in the meantime, I'm going to get to reading. I don't know. You always like to know which one stands the highest likelihood of getting read immediately. Something from my Brattle haul I add to the night's pile and read immediately. And honestly, the thing that's pulling at me the most here is those Stone Age stories from H.G. Wells. I know that's Rocket Summer is over and Garb August is in full swing. I don't know what it is that's pulling me to that. That's not going to take long. So those are pulling to me pretty strong. The first thing that I will read of all of this is the introduction here, which is called In Praise of Erasmus. It probably won't be much. Probably will be pretty make-weight, but that's immediate. I'm going to read that as soon as I finish making this video. But as to bringing it to the little book room and reading with all the new stuff, I'm thinking it's going to be the Stone Age stories of H.G. Wells. That could change between now and tonight, but I'll let you know. And I'll wrap this up for now, but I'll see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.